Welcome back to the Daily Lift. In Matthew chapter 18, verses 21 and 22, Peter came to Jesus and he said, "Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Up to 7 times?" And Jesus answers him by saying, "I don't say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. Jesus here is addressing an important fact about forgiveness that we all must understand. Peter here is asking, what's the limit of my mercy? When can I say enough is enough? And Jesus isn't saying you can say, I forgive you 490 times, and then the 491st time, you can say that's enough. He's saying, let's think about this differently. He goes on to tell us a parable about the unmerciful servant. And he ends this parable by saying, since you have been forgiven for so much, how could you even consider the measly offenses that are committed against you? Forgiveness is a central theme in the Bible, but do we really understand it? We hear people say, we probably have said it before, I'll forgive and forget, or the other side, I'll forgive, but I'll never forget, which is right. Are we supposed to forget? And what if I can't forget? Am I wrong for that? Even though forgiveness is a foundational teaching in Christianity, it doesn't necessarily mean erasing the memory completely of what happened. Forgiveness is more involving letting go of that resentment and that bitterness, because these things can not only impede in repairing relationships, but they can fester inside of us and they can affect our lives in so many negative ways. And many times we can't completely forget an experience, but we can choose what sort of value we place on it. We can choose how we allow it to affect our lives, ourselves, and our relationships with others. In Ephesians 4:32, Paul says, "Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you." So let's remembering the offense doesn't invalidate the act of forgiveness, but rather let's try to focus on the mercy that we've been shown and allow that mercy to shine through us to others. Colossians 3:13 says, "Bear with one another and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you." So forgiveness means choosing not to hold offense against that person and not letting it affect you and your interactions with them. So when we forgive, we choose not to allow it to be a point of contention, and we release ourselves from having to be the judge over that matter and just turn it over to God. And going back to the parable that Jesus tells in Matthew chapter 18, he explains why we should always have the spirit of forgiveness inside of us. You see, the servant came to his master knowing that he owed more than he could ever pay in a lifetime, and he asked for mercy. And the master had compassion on him, and he grants him mercy. He forgives this debt. He no longer owes it anymore. And then he turns around and he finds one of his friends, his fellow servant, that owed him far less, and he acted harshly to him. This friend said, "Please have mercy," and he would not. And he threw him in prison, and he wanted him to pay every penny. And so when this got back to the master, and he saw that he failed to see the correlation of mercy that was shown to him and act accordingly, this man was punished for it. And the debt was reinstated, and he was put in prison until every penny was paid back. So remember, since God forgave us for so much, we should stand ready and willing to forgive others. This isn't always easy, though. Sometimes those wounds leave deep scars that will never fully fade away. But we can choose how we see those scars, and we can view them as injustices or offenses against us and hold on to that bitterness and that anger, or we can view them like Joseph said to his brothers as he was forgiving them and for selling him into slavery as a boy. And he says, "What you meant for evil, God has meant for good." So keep your eyes on God. Don't let the mistakes of others derail you. Forgive easily and forgive often. Love much. And as always, go lift somebody up.